Welcome aboard the Athletics Can't Wait Jets podcast, your nonstop shop for all things Jets with Tim McMaster, Zack Rosenblatt, and Marissa Dunn.
Can't wait!
Check out the great sponsors in the description below the video. If you're checking us out on YouTube, click on them as well. Great sponsors down there. This is the fourth season of the Can't Wait podcast. We've said a lot of things over the years. I'm going to utter a phrase right now that has never been said on this show. The New York Jets are a good football team. That's right. The Jets are good. A 4-2 cheer from Marissa. Absolutely. A 4-2 football team, a team capable of going into Lambeau Field and dominating the Green Bay Packers. We are breaking down the big win on a third consecutive victory Monday here on the Can't Wait podcast. I'm Tim McMaster, along with the Athletics Jets reporter Zack Rosenblatt and Marissa Morris, our producer. We're going to talk about what it all means being 4-2 at this point, how they did it, the defense especially. And we're also going to talk about where this team can still get better, because despite these 3 straight wins, there are still some things that could certainly improve if the Jets really want to be a team that is making a push for the playoffs. 4-2 is a step, but we're not there yet. Zack, you were there. So first of all, you think about Lambeau Field as like this incredible atmosphere, wild fans. I know it was a little chilly, shirtless fans with cheese heads, everything that goes into the Lambeau Field experience. But I feel like the way this game went down, with basically no points in the first half, 3-3 at halftime, then the Jets take the lead early in the second half, and the Packers are never really in it after that. They did score the 1 touchdown to get within a touchdown, but you probably didn't really get that full experience at Lambeau Field. Seems like it was kind of quiet.
There actually was a decent amount of Jets fans, like a few of the guys.
I was going to bring that up too. Yeah.
A few of the guys in the locker room were talking about that. It was interesting. Again, it's like how I told you a couple weeks ago in Pittsburgh. It was weird being in a stadium where a team was getting booed off the field on offense, and it was not the Jets. It was because of the Jets. Like, that happened again over and over. Packers fans obviously have very high expectations, just based on like how rabid maybe not rabid, but fanatical, I guess, they are about their team, because that's kind of all they got going on, that and cheese and all that stuff in Green Bay. So they're obsessed with the Packers, and the Packers are not looking good right now. They look like a mess. The Jets are looking really good right now. They look like the opposite of a mess. And Robert Salah's messaging, we talked a lot earlier in the season about how they tend to shoot themselves in the foot a lot. I've been really impressed with the way he's talked about the way they've been winning in the team. He comes out and the first question is something about what this win means. And, he maybe goes a little too hard in the other direction. He's like, it doesn't mean anything. Win or loss wouldn't mean anything. We just want this to be the expectation now. Like that's
he's
like
overcompensating for his previous stuff.
But that's been his line to the team. Like, let's make this the standard. Let's make it so it's not such a huge surprise when the Jets win on Sunday, kind of thing. And that was kind of the message coming out of the locker room when you talk to everybody in there. They know what everybody thinks about the Jets. They know what everybody has said about the Jets, and they understand why the fans have been mad for so long and expect the worst. And this team, this rookie class, these free agents, this front office, and coaching staff, they've all like really tried to change that culture of same old Jets. And like I wrote about, and like I was tweeting about last night, like, it's time to like stop expecting the worst all the time. Honestly, like, I know, look, it's a long season ahead, and things can still obviously change, but they've played really well. And like you said, there's a lot of stuff they could fix. Like, they're winning in spite of some things, which is not like a thing they were doing before. And if the defense is going to keep playing this well, like, they're going to be able to match up with anybody. And so it'll come down to the offense playing their part, which, a lot of times I wait till the fourth quarter to do it, but the final score still shows a win at the end of the day. So 3 wins in a row, 4-2. As of right now, they'd be like the 5th seed in the playoffs. A couple division games coming up pretty soon that'll like really dictate what the season's going to look like. But there's nothing but optimism that you can have coming out of that game.
You mentioned culture, and obviously a head coach, part of the job of a head coach coming in and taking over a team, especially a bad team, is to change that culture. You also think of that with like veteran free agent signings, right? Like, I know there was a thought process that CJ Mosley would be a guy that could change the culture of the Jets. Obviously, he had the injuries. What you don't necessarily expect is for rookies to change the culture. But Sauce Gardner, man, the cheesehead on, I mean, that's the type of thing that changes it too. Like, it's not just that he's a great player and, you know, he talks and whatever, but everyone in that locker room is going to remember him coming in with the cheesehead, right? Like that's what helps build it. And I think that is also a culture changing thing. And obviously it annoyed the Packers. but the Jets don't play the Packers every year. It's not like
it's
this
not
is
like
something
the
that's going to
Patriots or
come back.
something.
Yeah, it's not going to come back to haunt them like the Packers are going to be like, we're mad about the cheesehead and come after them. But I think it does make a difference for this Jets team to he's just got so much. I don't know what the word. What's the word?
Swagger,
Whatever.
Yeah. Swagger.
That's the word. Yeah. So much.
He's got
really
so much sauce.
Yeah.
It's funny. Before the game when I was walking in the stadium, I saw a fan. I tweeted out a photo. There's a fan who had like he like redid the cheesehead to like be themed around sauce. Like it was like a different color and had sauce on it. And
he knew.
Like it was like, and then to like full circle come around, and Sauce has the whole thing with it. Not only did he have the cheesehead, but like, so from my perspective, just to give you like behind the scenes. So the game, I start heading down to the locker room because the Jets, cheese sauce. Yeah. So the Jets were blowing them out. So we knew it was over. Like a lot of times you stay up there until the game's over because you want to make sure, you know, that these games are always close with the Jets, it seemed like, or something crazy happens at the end. But this game was out of reach. So I started heading down the locker room. It's like a long trek to the locker room at Lambeau. It's like it's an old stadium, obviously. So as I'm going down, so all I know at that point is that Sauce had left the game to get checked for a concussion. He went into the locker room. As I'm in the elevator, I start seeing tweets about how he came back and he played at the end of the game. And then we're getting to like the press conference room, and there's like all this stuff about how he took a cheesehead from a fan, or a fan gave it to him, and he's going around, he's standing up, he's putting his arms up, and he's, you know, rallying the crowd, and then he starts going into the wrong locker room tunnel, which is when Alan Lazard comes over and knocks his thing off. And he picks it right back up, goes to the locker room. I noticed, I mean, that was like the crux of my like lead of my story and the idea behind it. And then you get to the locker room and he just has it propped up in his locker. It's still sitting there. He showers, he does interviews, he's walking out, he has it in his hand. He's like holding on to it. Like he just like doesn't want to like forget this moment or whatever. And then somebody on the team told me that he put it on again, either on the team bus or the team plane. Like I don't know. It's just something about him, and, you know, he's representative of this whole rookie class and the new culture. It's just like, they're just like a fun group. They have the personality and they have the talent to back it up. It's no longer like the idea. It's not like, you know, with the Jets, it was always okay. They have a few guys and maybe they're okay. And so, you know, maybe we'll be better in a couple of years. Like they build around these guys, and it's not like a down the line thing now. Like it really does feel like this team is living in this moment again. I mean, it was the last time they did that. And I don't know, it's special. And he's a special player. He's, you know, as the weeks have gone on, you know, he's been consistently good every week. So we've had, you know, waves of other guys like a Garrett Wilson who would have a couple of good games, or even like Zach Wilson would have a good game, or Breece Hall has, you know, come on the last couple of weeks. Sauce has been this way since week one. He has not wavered from how good he was in week one. He's dominated on the field. He's talked a lot of trash and backed it up. He's so likable, and he talks like, I mean, even if you remember from the interview we did on here that we posted on here, like you could just tell it, like all the, like, I know you guys love the stuff he was talking about with like the fridge and all that stuff. Like that's just like his personality. He's just like, maybe as he gets bigger and bigger, you won't see that as much. Maybe not. I don't know, but they should feel very good about their draft and the culture they're building in there. And like you said, like Sauce is just like so emblematic of how things are changing.
Yeah, and there was no moment when Aaron Rodgers like got sauce during that game.
No,
absolutely not. All the wins up until this point, right? You could put an asterisk next to it. Like the Browns imploded in the final couple minutes of that game, allowing the Jets to kind of come back and win that one. Mitch Trubisky with the Steelers was the quarterback. I mean, that you just say Mitch Trubisky, third string quarterback for the Dolphins. But this one, there's none of that. There's a Hall of Fame quarterback who, yeah, maybe his thumb hurts or whatever, but he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He started this football game. He threw it 40 times. This is a team that's got talent on both sides of the ball. They've been a Super Bowl contender for years, and it was in their house, and the Jets go in and win it. There's nothing that you can like take away from this one. It's just a good win.
Yeah, exactly. And even though they did like pull away in the fourth and stuff, they never trailed in this game. It was like pretty clear that, I mean, the offense was, stagnant. That's something we'll have to talk about, obviously, just because, like you said, that since we're talking about them as like winners now, and like you have to think about like, okay, how do they get to the playoffs and all that stuff? Like they need to not start so slow, because they're not going to be able to come back against some teams like the Bills or, even the Patriots are looking a little better. And at the second half of the schedule, that there's some teams in there. They play the Bills again, and they play the Vikings on the road. Like there's some good teams that's going to be harder to really like come back from that. So they need to do better than that. But sorry, I got distracted. Michael Reese had a comment. He said, "Has any rookie been more influential in the culture than Zack Rosenblatt?" That's a great question.
Truth.
I saw you tweeted the Jets have been 4-2 after 6 games every year you've covered them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There was one person that was confused by it. He's like, "Didn't you just start covering the team?"
Yes, that's a joke.
That's the joke. I forget I started rambling. I forgot what direction I was going, but
it was a win. It was a good win.
Yeah.
Basically, it was there's nothing we can take away from it.
No, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like they either led or were tied for all 4 quarters. Their defense, the Packers, you can say what you want about his receivers and his thumb and all that stuff, but it's really just excuses. Like that was a team that was supposed to be a Super Bowl contender this year, and you're seeing it with both the Giants and Jets. Team just keep like second guessing them and saying, that wasn't that good of a win, that wasn't a good of a win, and then you look up and they're 5-1 and 4-2. So at the end of the day, all that matters is that you have a win. Especially, and the thing that people outside of New York keep overlooking is that especially like other fan bases that get all mad, like Dolphins fans are getting real mad about how much the Jets were celebrating that win last week. What teams from other fan bases are forgetting is that the Jets and Giants don't win games. So when they win a game, it doesn't matter how they won it. They never used to win those games, even when the ones they were supposed to. So there's a lot of reasons to be excited. And I didn't bet on this actually. I picked the Jets to beat the Packers, both in the story and on here. I did it without like 100% confidence. In retrospect, I don't know, maybe there was something in the wind that made me feel that they could get the Packers were, going to fumble the bag or something. But now it's every week, like outside of the Bills game, I'm going to have to consider picking the Jets almost every week.
Yeah, especially if they keep getting.
I'm going to consider it. I'm not saying I'm going to. My point being like you have to like, okay, maybe they have a chance in this game. Yeah.
Is the number out for the Broncos game yet?
Yeah, I looked earlier. I think it was 3.5 Broncos favored.
Yeah,
they're at home,
which is just home, right? 3 points for being at home, and so it's.
We'll see. We'll see based on what happens tonight on Monday because they're playing tonight. Right. If they play well, that could go up. If they don't, the Jets have been the underdog every game. I imagine they'll be the underdog for until the bye at least. I mean, maybe against the Patriots are playing better, so I feel like Vegas is probably going to favor the Patriots. And then after the bye, they have some games where maybe they'll be the favorite, but they still are going to be the underdogs a lot. So, and I'm sure fans like that. I mean, you talk about that with fans, and that they prefer to, the whole underdog thing is a very, very big thing to rally around. So, I'm excited for. I mean, not to get too far ahead of myself, but I am excited for that Patriots game at MetLife. I think it's going to be a pretty fun atmosphere there, because everything that's happened on the road. You're going to be playing the Patriots division game. Everybody hates the Patriots around here. So that's going to be a lot of fun. There's a game in between that, obviously, but
yeah,
it certainly is. All right, some other things to get to big picture wise. You talked a little bit about the what this means, where they're headed, but from a coaching standpoint too, I wanted to touch on the LaFleurs and the battle of the LaFleurs. And Michael, Mike's always got a few little tricks up his sleeve. And the fascinating thing about this game was some of them worked. Berrios' touchdown obviously worked perfectly. CJ got out on the block. It just worked like you want it to. And then Breece Hall scores a touchdown on one that went completely wrong. And it's funny because I had read your story before I saw that. I had missed that play live. I read your story about how it was a botched play. And then I watched the video. And when you see it the first time, you're like, just hand it off to him. He goes up the middle. But then when you watch it back, you see that Garrett Wilson is coming around and was supposed to get it. So it's all coming up roses for LaFleur in this offense right now, as far as the running game goes.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, it was a good play design, which is part of why So they
That
had the two
worked.
running backs in there again, which it seems like is when a lot of their big plays happen, when those both guys are in there. And the Packers just like fell for the fake handoff or the fake toss to Michael Carter. And so again, they were supposed to hand it off to Breece Hall, and then he's supposed to toss it back to Garrett Wilson. And then Breece Hall saw a defensive end that was a little too close, so he just decided he was going to run forward, and he did. He scored a great touchdown. It all started. It wasn't even just there was a play in the red zone. They were at the 1 yard. It was late in the game. They were putting the Packers away, and they did a direct snap to Tyler Conklin on 3rd and 1 to get 1 yard. They had a wildcat play that wasn't as successful, where Breece Hall like faked a handoff, like he did a play action with Michael Carter, like a running back to a running back play action. Didn't work as well. Like he clearly has something in his bag of tricks. I think the first half was a little tough for him. There were some questionable decisions, and the passing game still has to really get going. But the fact that LaFleur adjusts over the course of a game is very promising, and he outclassed his brother in the end. Like, I mean, I know his brother doesn't call defensive plays or anything like that, but he was saying last week that on Mondays they usually talk, and Matt LaFleur will critique his play calling. Maybe it'll go the other direction this Monday.
Well, and it's interesting. You say he doesn't make the defensive play calls, obviously,
Yeah.
but he prepared his defense to face an offense that he knows so well, right? And they did a good job against the passing attack and Zach Wilson. We'll get into that, but little LaFleur was able to pull a few big cats or bunnies out of the hat. I'm all over the place with these analogies today.
We're all pretty tired, to be fair. So
Yeah.
You know what? I was going to lead with that, all of our how we all got here and exhaustion, but then I was like, I don't want to anger.
But it's Victory
the
Monday,
listeners.
so
let's
you
get
power through, right?
Get to the game. You power
Yeah.
through.
Power through.
We're going to take a quick break, rest up, and come back and talk about the defense, which really was the story of this game as far as why the Jets won it. We'll be back in a second. You may have noticed what looks like beer that we're drinking while recording the show if you watch us on YouTube. Well, guess what? It's not beer. It's water in a tall boy type can, and it's called Liquid Death. How'd it get that name? Well, because it will brutally murder your thirst, and their infinitely recyclable tall boy cans are helping to bring death to plastic bottles. They also donate 10% of the profits from every single can sold to help kill plastic pollution. You may be wondering, what does water from a can taste like? Well, guess what? It tastes like water, and they also have some flavors that are armed with 3 grams of agave nectar for more brutal flavor. So if you're walking by a school and see a kid taking out a tall can and drinking from it, don't worry. It's probably just Liquid Death. You can go get Liquid Death right now at your local Whole Foods Market, Target, and Stop and Shop stores, or find a Liquid Death retailer near you with their store locator tool at liquiddeath.com/wait. That's liquiddeath.com/wait.
Reserve Bar is your online source for premium and luxury spirits, wine, and champagne. And now Reserve Bar offers same-day delivery. Reserve Bar has a vast lineup of rare and hard-to-find bottles, premium brands, celebrity spirits, and limited releases that you just won't find at your local store. No one does spirits gifting better than Reserve Bar. Looking for an elevated gift? ReserveBar.com has you covered, and you can have the gift delivered right to their door. Even better, turn that spirits gift into a cherished memento with custom engraving. It's perfect for birthdays, weddings, anniversary, any holiday, you name it. Getting into home bartending? Reserve Bar has everything you need. Spirits for the shelves, sure, but they also have every barware, tool, and glass you'll need. Reserve Bar has a great feature called Cocktail Lounge. This is a treasure trove of cocktail recipes, bartending tips, interviews with master distillers, celebrities, and more. The hot trend in spirits is ready-to-drink cocktails. Have you tried these? These taste better than ever, and Reserve Bar now has a huge collection of them. These canned cocktails are great for parties when you just don't have time to tend the bar, and ideal for tailgating season, which is already in full swing. So I highly recommend visit reservebar.com today and use our promo code WAIT to save $10 off your purchase of $75 or more on spirits, wine, or pre-made cocktails, but only when you use our special offer at reservebar.com with the code WAIT. That's reservebar.com, code WAIT. This offer expires December 31st, 2022.
All right, let's move on to the defense specifically. And there was the 2 things I think that we need to get to here, and that is how they handled Aaron Rodgers, and then separately what they did to shut down this running game from the Packers. I don't know which is more impressive, but one thing that ties both of those together is Quinnen Williams. So let's talk about Quinnen Williams. 2 sacks, forced fumble, blocked field goal. I mean, just a dominating performance from a guy that is now kind of carrying this defense in everything that he's doing, playing at a Pro Bowl level. But you tweeted out today, Zach, that PFF not as impressed as us, right?
Yeah, part of me feels bad for even tweeting that out because I knew it would rile everybody up. But yeah, I was kind of taken aback by that because I reference PFF in a lot of my stuff because I think a lot of what they do can be really useful tool, and I mean even just beyond the grades, like a lot of the stats they track are pretty helpful. But yeah, they had Quinnen with like a 60-something grade, and I was texting with another Jets beat writer. I don't think I've seen a defensive lineman impact a game as much as he did live, like he did yesterday. Andy is his name. He works for NJ.com. He referenced like Myles Garrett against the Jets a couple years ago. He said was the last time he saw someone dominate like that. He had 6 pressures. I think he had 2 or 3 tackles for loss. He was just wrecking the game from start to finish. Like he left for a few plays before halftime, and then he came back out and he was perfectly fine. Like he's playing at a defensive player of the year level. Like he's playing at Aaron Donald level. He's on pace for like 14 sacks. This is going in like he's going to get paid probably next year, I would guess, unless they get ahead of the curve, which they might want to. If he's going to keep ascending like this, he's going to get a lot of money. This is kind of what the fan base has been looking for with Quinnen. You know, it was kind of a Leonard Williams type thing where he was always playing well, but you weren't like seeing it on the stat sheet necessarily, or he would come into the season banged up, so he never like was quite living up to his potential. He was always good, I think. Everybody was hoping for him to take it to the next level, and every week he's made an impact, and he's made everybody around him better. That D-line has just been absolutely dominant these last 3 weeks. JFM, Carl Lawson, Bryce Huff when he's in there. Vinny Curry even had some flashes in his first game. Jermaine Johnson, when he's healthy, like he's a part of this. Michael Clemens made some plays on special teams. He had a blocked punt that led to a touchdown. But it just starts with Quinnen Williams, and if the Jets were ever going to have an all-pro, it is Quinnen Williams, and you hope that he gets the attention for it. I think he's starting to. He won the Angry Runs Award last week from NFL Good Morning Football because of his stiff arm on Tyreek. And I just think, he just changes everything this defense can do because they don't need a blitz. They don't ever need a blitz when they have him up front because they can do a 4-man rush. When you can do that and you have Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed on the outside, it allows you to get a little more creative in the middle of the field. And I think that's what you've seen the last couple of weeks. I think Jeff Ulbrich has done a much better job these last few weeks. I know we got a lot of criticism early in the season. I think he deserves praise too. I think he's kind of gone quietly right in these last couple of games, but he's done a great job. And Quinnen just, he opens everything up. They drafted him number 2 overall for a reason, and he's living up to that finally.
Jets last 3 weeks, 31 sacks and quarterback hits combined. That's the most in the NFL. For the season, 48. That's 3rd. So, it's been all season, but they've really cranked it up the last few weeks. So, Rodgers for the game, 26 of 41, 246, 1 touchdown, no picks. But they got to him 4 times. I think it was a 36-yard loss, too, on the 4 sacks. They made Aaron Rodgers look uncomfortable. That was what kind of I took away from it, that he didn't. Usually Aaron Rodgers, even when pressured, just kind of looks like he's going to get away. He's going to be elusive. There's going to be a little spin. He's going to either get rid of the ball or find somebody out of the backfield. Or he always knows where to go with it. And there was times in some of these sacks where it looked like he was going to do that, but then there was the Jets to bring him down, and he didn't look like Aaron Rodgers. That's what I'll say for a game.
Yeah. There was even plays where he was completing passes, they were still hitting him at the end of the play. And I think they might have had 1 roughing the passer penalty in the game. Can't remember who it might have been against Michael Clemens. Maybe I'm blanking. No, it was Nathan Shepard actually. But the play, it had been like a touchdown anyway, so it got applied to like the kickoff after. But yeah, the defensive line was really making life hard for him. He clearly was bothered by the finger thing, but he still was also able to make some incredible throws. There was one that he made. I'm blanking on who the receiver was, maybe Alan Lazard, who was being covered by DJ Reed, and he still got it over him, like perfectly placed. Like Rodgers at his best is still like as good as anybody in the league. But yeah, the Jets are making things very uncomfortable. You saw after the game, some of his quotes have come out where he's like, they need to go and get some better players, essentially, which is interesting. I don't know. He seems like it didn't seem like wasn't. I know he's pretty like chill guy from all the ayahuasca or whatever, but he didn't seem like very riled up. So I don't know. It feels like maybe he's going to retire at the end of this year, or he signed that contract. I wonder if he's regretting it, to be honest with you. Instead of like going somewhere like Denver or another, like maybe waiting a year and then going to another team. Like they don't seem like a team that's ready to compete right now. They have a lot of holes, but still they have some talent on that team. They have some talented offensive linemen, and the Jets just absolutely beat them. And it helped that they were shutting down the running game. AJ Dillon had like one long run for like 19 yards. That didn't really amount to anything. Other than that, they shut down the running game after they'd been beaten up by Raheem Mostert last week. And so I think a lot of that has to do with, I think the Jets are like doing a little pick their poison, where the Dolphins, they were going to let them do the runs. They were going to try to keep things from killing them over the top. With this game, I think they were focused a little more on stopping the run and weirdly trying to let the Packers receivers beat them. I think they were confident in the corners shutting those guys down. Once Rodgers' finger was hurt, maybe that adjusted their plans a little bit, but just a really good play calling game from Jeff Ulbrich, and they stepped up to the challenge for sure.
It's crazy if we're going to look back and say that the Jets broke Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
like,
and the Giants.
If this is like the 2 weeks, like,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, who would have predicted before? I mean, nobody would have, that the Packers would lose to the Giants and Jets back to back. Like not even like spread out over the course of the season in 2 straight games. Yeah. I mean, like I said in the last pod, like Rodgers had won 12 in a row coming off a loss.
Crazy.
They don't have the juice that they use. Like the NFC, I mean, we're not an NFC podcast, obviously, but the NFC is like crazy wide open. Like other than the Eagles, the Buccaneers.
Anything other than the NFC East, really.
Yeah. I mean, the Bucs just lost to the Steelers.
Yeah.
The Steelers look
Tom
like
Brady's going
I'm
legs
too
on
familiar
Friday
with that.
Yeah, Tom Brady might be tapped out as well.
Ooh, yeah. Not the best look, that's for sure.
The Packers running attack, 134.8 yards per game coming into this one, 60 yards, as you said, 19 carries, so right around 3 yards per carry. And the great thing about this Jets defense, when you look at the way it's set up, right, is that they're able to hold with this defensive line. They're able to do that against this rushing attack, and then they're able to generate pressure on Rodgers without necessarily blitzing. And I don't say finally, it's only been a couple of years, but it reminds you now, right? Like when you look at this defensive line and what this defense is doing, you can see Salah's 49ers defense and kind of what they did. I feel like it's finally kind of getting to that point where it's like, okay, this is what he had there, and now he's built it here.
Yeah, I mean, you see the difference between last year when he didn't have the players and this year when he does have the players to like enact his defense. And I think a part of that was he brought in a bunch of guys that played in San Francisco and had been a part of it too. It got a lot of veteran guys like DJ Reed, Solomon Thomas, Quan Alexander, guys like that. Even Jordan Whitehead has some experience in like a similar, he's close to Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman recommended him to Salah. So yeah, I mean, they're enacting his vision that he had for this defense. Even the linebackers had a pretty good game. Quincy Williams came back, was way better than I could have expected coming off an injury. Quan has been pretty good. The safeties, we haven't really talked about the safeties in a couple of weeks, which is a positive. So I said all of training camp that I thought the defense could be really talented. And then early in the season, I started second guessing myself because they're making a lot of mistakes. But this is what I thought I saw in camp. Like I just think this is a deep, talented defense. They have legit depth pretty much across the board besides that safety and maybe linebacker. But even at linebacker, you saw Quincy go down and then CJ Mosley and Quan stepped up. So like I said, this defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. This is going to be a tough one coming up on Sunday. I know everybody's, ragging on the Broncos because they look like a mess, but they have a lot of talent on offense. They have a lot of talent on defense. And this defense is going to have its work cut out for it, for sure.
It is one place where the fact that the Jets do rotate as much as they do, right? In Denver, that's, of all the places in the NFL, like getting all those breaks in that thin air certainly helps. So maybe that's, Quinnen Williams huffing and puffing on the sideline like we talked about a few weeks ago. That happens in the thin air, but this team does have that depth.
I have asthma. I get it.
All right. So that we just did 30 minutes on all the good, all the happiness. Hey, the Jets are 4-2. The Jets are a good football team. But let's nitpick a little bit. Let's talk about what could be better. And obviously the one thing that stands out is that Zach Wilson could be better. We talked about how he could be a game manager, and that's fine. 10 of 18, 110 yards. You'd like to see a little more production. Obviously, they ran the ball successfully. One stat, though, that seems like it kind of recreates itself week after week, Zach, is 1 of 7 when pressured, 9 of 11 when clean. When they protect Zach Wilson, he's been effective. When he's pressured, he's a second-year quarterback, right? That's when second-year quarterbacks struggle, is when they face pressure. It just makes the value of that offensive line and being able to pass protect him that much bigger, because it seems like every week when we see that breakdown, it's that clear that how good he can be when he has time.
Yeah. Like for sure, any most quarterbacks, I think, like there's guys like Aaron Rodgers or Brady or guys that just like are, or Lamar Jackson, who are just not going to be phased even when they're getting pressured. So that you expect the numbers to look bad. But I will say he does need to get better against pressure, because he's rated as like the worst guy against pressure in the league this year and last year. Another thing we have to keep reminding ourselves, and sometimes I forget, is that he literally just played his 16th game of his career. Like he's still in his first season game wise. So but there was some they won despite throwing for 110 passing yards. You're not going to win many games when you only throw 110. That's just reality. They were able to do it against a team that was supposed to be pretty good. I don't think they'll beat the Broncos with those kind of numbers. He had one throw in particular that was, didn't wind up getting that much attention because they won, obviously, but he was getting pressured. They were in the red zone. It was 3rd down. He's getting chased almost to the sideline, and instead of either taking a sack or throwing it out or whatever, even getting intentional grounding, he just heaves it up into the end zone, and the guy almost should have picked it off, and he didn't. And it was really, really bad. And those are the kind of decisions you can't make. Like some people were defending it as, you got to take risks sometimes. They're not throwing it downfield. Not that risk. Like that, just a really low percentage bad play that he clearly just panicked. And that's kind of stuff that you saw last year, and you don't want to see it from him anymore. You didn't really see that from him last week or in the 4th quarter against the Steelers. He's not going to be great every week. He's still a young quarterback, like I said, but the next step to unlocking this team is Zach Wilson becoming the guy that they need him to be. And like we talked about last week, sometimes that'll be a game manager. Sometimes they're going to need him to do more than that. They can't have a passing game that just is not effective in the modern NFL. Like you can run it down people's throat, but you're going to go against some teams where that's not going to work. So when the running game's not working, you need Zach Wilson to get things going. And I don't think he necessarily was like terrible in this game. They didn't really throw the ball very much. They didn't ask him to do very much, but
he didn't turn it over. I mean,
he didn't turn it over.
He should have with that one throw.
I mean, I don't think they've turned it over in like 8 quarters or something like that, or 9 quarters, something really impressive. So keep that going, then you're going to have a chance any game. If they want to start beating some good teams, like he needs to help that journey.
When Joe Flacco was throwing it 50 something times a game, we said you can't have that for this Jets team. And I think the same is with the pass attempts under 20, like in the NFL in 2022.
It is funny.
Like that's not going to work very often. Like
I mean, when the running game's working, definitely feed Brees as much as possible. When you get an early lead, definitely grind it down their throat. But like I said, they're also like this game was pretty close, and because the Jets defense was keeping the offense in it. Like I've tweeted this a few different times. If they could get the offense defense playing well at the same time, which it has in the 4th quarter generally, but if they can do that, even not for 4 quarters, for 2 quarters or 2.5 quarters, they'll be in good shape, because the defense was playing really well. The offense was not. And then eventually the offense started playing better. A lot of it because of the Brees Hall and the running attack. But and like you mentioned, the offensive line, I should shout it out. They had another pretty good game. The offensive line didn't give up any sacks. Yeah, I think they only gave up like 6 or 7 pressures or something like that. So that group, the 5, it was the 2nd week in a row with that 5. It'll probably be there again next week. George Fant will be eligible to come off the injured reserve after next week, I think. I don't know where he's at in his recovery yet. I'm going to be very interested to see how they approach that. I imagine they would put him back in the lineup, but, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. Like this offensive line has played really well. So that's going to be a very interesting decision coming up.
So as much as we critique Zach, and we'll continue to do it, he's the number 2 pick. He's supposed to be the guy. So we're going to talk about him every episode of this podcast, and we have since he was drafted. He is 3-0 as a starting quarterback this season. So wins at the end of the day. What do you want from your quarterback? You want wins, and that's what he's given him. All right. So everybody was feeling great about this game. Cheeseheads and on Sauce Gardner, and we overcame a passing attack, but then yesterday after the game later, Rick Cimini sent out a tweet, said of all the eye-popping stat factoids today, this one was the hardest to understand. Elijah Moore, 0 targets, which is fair. Like, not 0 catches, 0 targets. What do you not want your receiver to do when that is out on Twitter? You don't want him to respond to it. Or if he does respond to it, you want to say, I'll have my moments, like blah, 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 whatever. There's probably something there. Instead, this is what Elijah Moore came back with. If I say what I really want to say, I'll be the selfish guy. We winning. Grateful, huge blessing, all I ever wanted. Bittersweet for me, but I'll be solid. So I'll just say quiet. Just know I don't understand either. So basically he's saying, if I say something, I'll be selfish, but here it is. I'm going to say it. He said it. I mean, he said it. He couched it before he said it, but he said it. And obviously that blows up. And then he tweeted, well, he retweeted it later in the night, but then he tweeted, I think today, more of like, hey, my guys know where I'm at. My teammates, know that I'm backing them the whole way. And he kind of took a half step back. But that said, if you're throwing the ball 18 times a game and you have 4 talented receivers plus talented running backs, it's impossible to keep them all happy, right? Like there's just not enough touches out there. And Elijah Moore is the guy that's unhappy today.
Yeah. It's an interesting conversation because on one hand, you kind of get his frustration. And the way I was thinking about it is, they're winning games, which is obviously the ultimate goal. From all accounts, he's a good teammate and all that stuff. But then anytime you open social media, you have the entire fan base and the media, myself included, because I think it's relevant, obviously. But everybody's tweeting about how he's not getting any targets, not getting production. Where's Elijah Moore? Where's Elijah Moore? Every time he opens his phone, he sees that, which is a good reason to not go on social media during the season, probably. But so he's seeing that, and he's being reminded about it every day. And in his head, he's like, I'm getting open. I'm just not getting thrown the ball. I feel like I deserve more. All that stuff. So it's not ideal that he decided to go and air those grievances on Twitter to a degree. I get the sense that maybe internally they weren't like thrilled that he did that. I don't think they're going to hold it against him necessarily. You want a guy to want the ball, but I even pulled up the numbers. So he didn't get targeted out of that game, which was surprising. He's run 222 routes this season, which is the 15th most of all receivers, and he's averaging less than a yard per route, which is like, let's see, there's 87 receivers listed here. That puts him 78th. So he's just not being productive. He's not getting targeted. And part of that, is Zach Wilson related. It seems like Zach just has a connection with Corey Davis and Braxton Berrios, where he's still trying to figure it out. Garrett Wilson too. Garrett hasn't really done much since Zach's been back. Garrett did have 2 drops that were pretty tough. He needs to cut back on those. So Zach needs to build a better chemistry with Elijah and Garrett. But again, if they're winning, like at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And there's always, like you said, they've all these weapons now, and they're not gonna be able to feed all of them. Elijah's been the odd man out way longer than I thought he would be. I talked him up all training camp because I thought he looked really, really good. I thought he was gonna have a star season, like legit Pro Bowl caliber stuff. Especially because if you look at his numbers from last year before he got hurt, like he was playing really well, especially later in the season. So, it's something to keep an eye on. I kind of had a feeling this was kind of bubbling because it was week after week. He was just not getting targeted. There was the one game, I think it was a Steelers game where he got 3 targets early and they didn't target him again. So maybe they'll make it more a concerted effort to do it. I don't know if him talking about it on Twitter is going to help his cause necessarily as much as he might think it would. The bigger question is if and when because they're not going to win the rest of their games. Spoiler alert. I don't think they're going to win the rest of them. So if they're losing and he's not getting targets, how does he handle it then? So I don't know. You prefer not to have these kind of issues, especially when things are going so well. Not everybody's going to be happy at all times. I don't think it's anything to be concerned about necessarily. But it is something I'm keeping an eye on. It's something to keep an eye on. And if they don't start getting the ball and he starts pouting more and then it becomes a problem, then you might see him get less and less snaps for all I know. So he's talented enough that he deserves to be on the field. Hopefully they start getting the ball because he's their best, deep threat, I think. They haven't really taken many shots downfield with Zach.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, Zach's going deep is a little different for a quarterback, right? And Zach's been safe and tried the more intermediate short stuff.
Yeah. And something that John Stern just commented, he said, why is it more being used in the slot? I think that's a fair question because that's one thing I haven't really understood completely is that he's been used on mostly as an outside receiver. He's not like a huge guy. He's not like a 50-50 catch guy, 50-50 ball guy. And I think he could be really good in the slot in the middle of the field. So I would want them to use him more there. They have Garrett Wilson, who they like in the slot because he can make plays after the catch and stuff like that. But I'd be curious to see if LaFleur maybe tries to like move these guys around to get them, manufacture some touches for them with Zach. It doesn't seem like they're going to go in that direction if they haven't yet, but I think that I think he would be a lot better as a slot receiver than a guy that's purely on the outside.
The other thing I thought we'd see more from him, because he could do it a little bit in college too, is that he would be the guy that would get like the reverses and the little handoffs that seem to go to Braxton Berrios most of the time, just because of his explosiveness and in the open field. I would think, I think last year it felt like he was going to be that guy that got kind of the Tyreek Hill type plays, or and it just hasn't been. He's been just a receiver for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, they have Braxton Berrios for a lot of those plays now. They have Garrett Wilson, who has the skill set, probably a better skill set in those plays than Elijah. So he's kind of weirdly become an odd man out just because of almost his skill set, which is, it's crazy to think they drafted both Denzel Mims and Elijah in the second round, and they've like struggled to like find ways to use them, even though I think they're both pretty talented. I mean, first time we brought up Mims in a while, because I don't think it's quite the same thing, but I don't know. There's some parallels there because they've added these new guys. And it's funny. Corey Davis went from being the guy that a lot of fans were like, trade him, get rid of him, he drops it too much, to like, he's this old, reliable, steady receiver. Now, he's not old. He's like 27 or whatever. But I don't know. That's been pretty interesting to me. Like, Corey Davis has become the solid guy you can rely on. And now they're trying to get that from the other guys.
All right. So big picture, 4-2 instead of, I think we both had them 2-4, maybe at this point, somewhere around that range. So looking ahead, how realistic is it to think playoffs are a possibility?
It's absolutely realistic. I mean, if they go into the bye with 5 wins, let's say they win one of the next 3, they're 5-4 after the first 10 games. First 10 weeks, anybody would have taken that. And they've let me pull up the schedule real quick. I don't have it off the top of my head. Okay, so after the bye, you have winnable games against the Bears, Lions, Jaguars, Seahawks are all teams that are probably not going to make the playoffs. I think the Vikings, while they've won, they haven't looked like amazing in a lot of their wins. Patriots is tough. Buffalo's tough. In Miami at the end of the season, who knows what that's going to look like. But, I mean, are there 4 more wins there? I think so. I think you could say they could get 4. So if you're 9-8 in this playoff race, you're probably getting in as one of the wild cards. If you get 10 or 11 wins, maybe, they're not going to catch the Bills. So you're still just a wild card, but
we're talking playoffs.
I know, but we're talking about like, you have to consider it. It's just, I was thinking about it with the Giants too. It's like, at this point, if the Giants don't make the playoffs, they would have to have like an epic collapse because they're 5-1 right now. So it's, that's the crazy. 4 wins this early in the season, like, the possibilities just like really open up for this team. And I am very curious to see how, even like the trade deadline coming up, they have a couple guys they could trade away that they're not using, like a Bryce Hall or Denzel Mims or, one of the defensive linemen, because they play like 11 defensive linemen every week.
There'll be an emergency podcast if they trade.
But I'm curious. Yeah, exactly. And I'm curious if, I don't think Joe's going to make any like big splashes. I don't think they have the cap space, and I don't think you want to trade too many assets. But if they start feeling like, we have a real shot at the playoffs, like, is he going to go and get another safety? Is he going to get some depth on the offensive line? Is he going to find another pass rusher? Like, I wouldn't rule it out, because Joe is really good at trade. I think he's proven that he's a really good trader and good at getting value out of guys or getting guys for value. So I'm as the trade deadline approaches, which I think is around the bye week, I'm curious to see how that plays out.
All right. As we wrap things up, I got a DM this week from Christopher Murphy. Said, I'm pretty sure it was Streveler who blocked that punt and inspired the win. Snuck into a.
Him and Michael Clemens,
they look just
similar,
like each other.
Barely similar. Yeah.
Same size. Yeah, yes. Absolutely. But thank you. We always love it when somebody gives us a reason to talk about Amazing. Streveler. So that came in. I was like, we'll get that into the pod. Broncos are next. We will preview that one later on this week, probably Thursday, it looks like. This week we'll have a time a little bit later on, probably either afternoon or evening. But enjoy the win, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Victory Monday. If you want to join The Athletic, you can do it for $1 a month for 6 months. Go to theathletic.com/can't wait. For Zach Rosenblatt and Marissa Morris, I'm Tim McMaster. Thanks for checking out the Can't Wait podcast.